I built all of this. For years, people like me were told we should be grateful for scraps. That we didn't have leverage. That we weren't supposed to expect more. They called it hunger. Like ambition was a survival disease. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't just hungry, I was starving for dignity. For freedom. For something my daughter could be proud of. They thought I'd take whatever they gave me. Instead, I took back everything. And if you're watching this, sitting in your car on your lunch break, wondering if anyone sees what you're capable of, let me tell you, they probably don't. So build it anyway. Build it in secret if you have to. Build it tired. Build it after bedtime stories and instant noodles. Just build that they'll never see you coming, and they'll never forget when you finally arrive. 2 months after our launch, I got an email from Accion's HR department. Dear Ms. Ortiz, we noticed a recent overlap in client engagement with one of our long-standing partners, Meridian Technologies. We'd appreciate the chance to discuss potential overlaps and intellectual property concerns. Please advise when you are available. I didn't respond. My lawyer did. Per our previous review, Ms. Ortiz has not breached any intellectual property clauses. Furthermore, as your employment contract contained no non-compete agreement and no claim to projects built on her own time and equipment, any suggestion of overlap is legally baseless. They went quiet after that, but that silence was louder than anything Garrett could have said. I knew what it meant that he knew he lost. Not long after, I started getting DMs on LinkedIn. First, it was people I used to work with, quiet messages like, "Hey, Layla, is it true you started something on your own? Saw Luma mentioned in a dev forum. That yours? You hiring?" I answered every message, because I remembered what it felt like to be invisible. I remembered the wobbly desk, the broken AC, the "we're a family, lies." One message stood out. The IT was from Ava, a junior dev from another firm. She wrote, "Your story gave me hope." I thought it was just me getting passed over, underpaid, and ignored. I started my own project last week. Don't know where it'll go, but thank you. I believe I can now. I cried reading that, because that was the point. That IT was never just about revenge, or money, or Garrett. IT was about proving to myself, and others like me, that our ceilings are only real if we accept them. By the end of the first year, we weren't just surviving, we were scaling. That we built onboarding tutorials with actual empathy. That we translated our interface into 3 languages. That we offered mentorship tracks for junior devs who didn't graduate from fancy universities. One of them was Darian, a soft-spoken kid from the Bronx who reminded me of myself when I first started, hungry and tired, but still hopeful. "You're not just learning to code," I told him during a late-night session. "You're learning to build what no one else will give you." And that's what Solaris Digital became, a place where overlooked talent wasn't just tolerated, but cherished. Where people who had been told, "You're lucky to be here," could finally say, "No, you're lucky to have me." Last month, we got an invitation to speak at a tech leadership summit. They wanted me to give a keynote titled From Underpaid to Unstoppable. The speaker before me was none other than Garrett Pembroke. He talked about retention strategies and nurturing junior developers. He used big words and empty phrases. People nodded politely. Then I took the stage, and I told them everything: the ramen, the $12 hours, the toilet that wouldn't stop running, the line of code I wrote at 3:17 a.m. that changed my future, the daughter I had to stay strong for, the cold realization that nobody was coming to rescue me. But mostly, I talked about what happens when you stop asking for a seat and start building your own table. I ended with this: if you've ever been underestimated, underpaid, or undervalued, know this: you're not a liability, you're the future. They just haven't figured it out yet. Afterward, a line of people waited to talk to me. Some asked about Luma. Some wanted advice. Some just said thank you. But one face stood off to the side. Garrett. He didn't speak. Just nodded, like he finally understood what he'd lost, and I smiled because I finally understood what I'd gained: freedom, dignity, and the power to open doors for others. So, if you're still watching, still listening to my story, drop a comment below. Tell me your name, your dream, your wobbly desk moment, and remember, you don't need their permission, you don't need their approval, you just need to start, because your story, it's not over, not even close. And here's the part no one ever tells you: success doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like small, quiet mornings when no one's awake yet, and you're sipping coffee over code that you control. It feels like signing your first employee's paycheck and knowing you changed the direction of someone else's life. It feels like Zara running up to me one evening and saying, "Mom, I told my teacher you build computers for superheroes." That made everything worth it. We outgrew my kitchen table within 6 months. Now Solaris has an office, not a fancy glass tower, but a bright, cozy space in a refurbished warehouse. Exposed brick, big windows, creaky floors. I kept the table, though. It sits in the center of the break room, surrounded by plants and mismatched chairs. A reminder of where we started. We do things differently here. No fake family slogans. No $300 sushi while the interns eat stale vending snacks. We pay people what they're worth. We give flexible hours, real mentorship, and transparency. Because I remember what it's like to pray for a $2 raise and get told to be grateful. We recently closed our biggest deal yet, an enterprise contract with a client who left Axion because they were tired of being talked down to. Elise Werner herself recommended us. She said, "You turned a broken experience into a beautiful one." That's what companies remember. The other day, Zara asked me if I'd ever go back to work for someone else. I laughed. No, baby. Mommy builds the blueprints now. So to anyone out there stuck at the wobbly desk, eating lunch in their car, wondering if they'll ever be seen, listen. To me, you already matter. You just need to build something loud enough that they can't ignore you anymore. Here's what I'm building. Come with me if you want to thrive. By Friday, 3 out of 5 had quietly agreed. The 4th was on the fence. The 5th? Well, they'd need more convincing, and I had a plan for that too. The game wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. Mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone else write it for me. Each meeting followed the same pattern: documentation of inflated reports, proof of manipulation, a calm, calculated offer to transition their business to my new firm. Some reacted with shock, some with anger, but all listened. And most importantly, they didn't walk away. They saw what I saw, a company built on illusion, and someone finally offering substance. By Friday afternoon, 4 out of 5 had quietly agreed to a 90-day trial with my new agency. I'd named it Clarity and Company. Not flashy, but deliberate. Because clarity was what had carried me through the wreckage of that week, past the applause, past the betrayal, and into something better. I didn't resign. Not yet. See, I needed one last moment in the spotlight. Not for recognition. For closure. That came the following Tuesday, back in the same conference room where the cake crumbs and balloon strings still clung to the corners like ghosts of that humiliating day. Drew strolled in 5 minutes late, his hair freshly styled, his watch probably worth more than my car. He smiled, shook hands with the Westbrook team like he owned the place, and slid into the seat at the head of the table. Luther followed, clapping him on the back and shooting me a thumbs up like we were all in on this grand mentorship plan. Marcus Westbrook sat directly across from me. I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers tapped lightly on the folder he hadn't opened yet. He met my eyes once, briefly. I nodded. That was all I needed. Let's get started, Drew said, launching into a rehearsed summary of marketing objectives that he clearly didn't write. Most of it mirrored last quarter's deck word for word. Luther interjected occasionally to bolster him, while I sat there silent, hands folded, just watching. When Drew finally paused and turned toward Marcus, expecting praise or questions, the room shifted. Marcus cleared his throat. I appreciate the update, he said. But before we move forward with your projections, I'd like to hear from the person who actually ran the last 18 months of campaigns. Ms. Chen. My turn. I stood slowly, deliberately. Thank you, Marcus. As you mentioned, I've overseen the marketing strategy for Westbrook Industries during the past year and a half. What I can say with confidence is that the actual numbers diverge significantly from what's been previously reported. Drew blinked. Wait, what? I ignored him and clicked the remote in my hand. A clean slide deck appeared on the conference room screen. Not the one Luther signed off on. My version. The real one, beginning in Q3 of last fiscal year, campaign. Efficiency was misrepresented by an average of 37%. Retention numbers were inflated. Engagement rates skewed. The metrics you've based your marketing investment on, I said, turning to Marcus, were manipulated internally, without your consent. The silence was absolute. Luther stood up, slow and stern-faced. Naomi, what the hell are you doing? Correcting the record, I said, calm and even. I'm not accusing anyone of criminal wrongdoing, yet, but I believe Westbrook Industries deserves full transparency, and I've provided the documentation to support that. Dad? Drew said, looking confused and a little pale now. Is this true? Luther glared at me, but said nothing. Marcus, however, finally opened his folder. Inside were the same reports I'd shown him during our lunch. Your team lied to us, Marcus said. And we made major product line decisions based on that data. We spent millions. Naomi's data appears to be clean, said one of Marcus' executives. The inconsistencies she identified matched the anomalies we flagged earlier this quarter. Luther looked like he'd aged 10 years in 30 seconds. I shut the presentation down and turned to face the room. I'll be leaving the company at the end of this week. I'm starting a new agency, small, but experienced. Several clients are already on board. Marcus, I hope Westbrook will consider joining them officially. That was it. No dramatic exit. No mic drop. Just the truth, laid bare in front of the very people they thought I'd be too afraid to speak to. I walked out of the room while Drew sat there blinking like someone had pulled the rug out from under his expensive shoes. Back in my office, I closed the door and started packing. I left behind the corporate swag, the framed awards, the thank you cards from people who wouldn't remember my name next month. I took only what mattered, my notebooks, my research, and my freedom. My resignation email was already drafted. I hit send and it was short. No dramatics. Just a statement of transition, a thank you to the team, and a note that I'd be available for any remaining onboarding assistance through the end of the week. No one replied, but I didn't need them to. By Friday, I was officially gone. 3 weeks later, I opened the doors to Clarity and Company's tiny office in a shared workspace downtown. It had one window, no coffee machine, and terrible lighting. But it was mine. Marcus was our first official client, then came another, and another. One of the account managers from my old company jumped ship 2 weeks after I left. Then a designer, then a data analyst I'd mentored from day one. They believed in me, not because I was popular, or loud, or backed by nepotism, but because I was good. And they knew it. The last I heard, Luther was being investigated internally by the board. Drew had taken a sabbatical to find himself. Apparently I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The silence of their fall was louder than anything I could have said. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not speaking up sooner. If I wish I'd confronted them the day they handed my job to someone who'd never earned it. Maybe I do. Maybe there was a version of me that could have burned it all down in that moment, but that version wouldn't have built what I have now. And what I have now, control, a clarity, clients who trust me because I don't lie to them, not a company that doesn't reward politics over performance. And every time I step into a pitch meeting, every time I shake a new hand and offer my card with my name at the top, Helena Chen, founder and managing partner, I remember that day in the conference room, the blue and silver balloons, the cake I never touched. I remember it all, and I smile because they built their empire on my back, but I built mine on the truth, and that foundation, it doesn't crack.